Well, I am proposing here an integrative view of intelligence in nature. Somehow we will see that our basic unit or fundamental system or model system is the simplest cell, prokaryotic cells, and we can obtain some basic notions that work very well along the evolutionary process and the growth of complexity. Then we are going to see first that in general intelligence has been integrative in its scientific study. We'll go next to how intelligence is organized in nature. This is the basics of natural intelligence I was talking about one moment ago. And then we will go to some social vision, mission for the study of information and intelligence, proposing a convergence between three varieties of intelligence, not very well connected. It is natural intelligence, artificial intelligence, and what I call social intelligence. Okay. Well, intelligence actually always has been treated integratively in an integrated way, either in the Eastern world or in the Western world. We have big names that have given their views, their opinions, their works on intelligence, but it was, so to speak, philosophy. It is psychology in the past century when we have a scientific view of intelligence, but it is very narrow and very provincial. And it really has not an enormous multidisciplinary interest. So we have to wait for the second half of 20th century to see new integrative approaches to intelligence in the senses. And we find not really great attempts, because behaviorism was pretending a new road, a new way, free of philosophical, so to speak, abuse, and really they destroy the phenomenon, just reducing it to learning, conditioning learning, the different varieties of learning, but completely devoid of any substantive content. We can say that in these times. Then ethology, open with the study of animal behavior, animal intelligence, open new vistas on animal intelligence. And this was later on sociobiology, but it has some problems, really some problems. And then we find a very interesting cognitive science synthesis in the 80s. They were proposing a hexagon of disciplines in a very ambitious scientific coalition of philosophy, linguistics, psychology, neuroscience, anthropology, artificial intelligence. And it was unified around a computational paradigm in the central concept of representation. Somehow, if we compare this hexagon of disciplines, we are going to cut it in half. We are proposing a triangle as the fundamental nucleus of intelligence. A triangle, I was commenting, of artificial intelligence from the side of computing, of natural intelligence from the biological point of view, and social intelligence from the social. It is not so different from this hexagon, but I think we go more to the nucleus of the problem. Well, artificial intelligence has had many ups and downs during those decades. I have to say something. My beginnings in the scientific enterprise was precisely about natural intelligence. It was in the 80s. I was studying I was working in enterprises in computing matters, and I was very interested in artificial intelligence. But then I was very disappointed by the contents. Then I stopped my work in companies, and then I went to the university again and discussed quite a lot with the people researches in artificial intelligence, and I developed the view of natural intelligence, the evolution of biological information processing. A few days ago, I had reread the thesis, and I found it a little, I have been 20 years or 30 years or 40, I don't know how many years without reading it. And I found it a little bit naive but interesting. And the problem of this approach in that time was that absolutely nothing was known about signaling and about the fundamentals of the biological information processing at the cellular level. Okay. Well, so the challenge we have today is that in last decade or so, artificial intelligence has jumped a big leap with all the new mass communication, the big data, machine learning, deep learning, but it still is not, it has great mnemonic power, but brittle, it's narrow, biased, etc. And I mentioned here Yixin Feng quest for advancing artificial intelligence. I mean, for many people with scientific views, not really technologically oriented, artificial intelligence needs really some rethinking. And then we have had the last 2 decades, after the sequencing of the human genome, particularly all the bioinformation revolution. And then it has renewed, I think, the challenge of natural intelligence. There are plenty of novelties in the biomolecular and the neuroinformational knowledge. And I think it now can converge with the revamped artificial intelligence and the new social and computational studies in an integrative global view of intelligence. Well, in our second part, how intelligence is organized in nature. Here some basic basic conceptualizations I want to introduce, not to explain too much, but we have, like in all intelligence systems, the central goal of the system, and this is important, it's advancing the life cycle. Everything in the living cell is oriented to advance the life cycle. For the first time, we can recognize the information flow in the cell. I will explain later, but this is a very important point. But we can say, okay, this is the information flow. And we will see that the famous energy flow and the information flow we are going to discuss are quite interrelated, intertwined. And we will see that the work of the information flow is to wake up the expression of genes, and DNA works as the knowledge stock of the system. And then we see that cellular intelligence is in adaptive use of the knowledge stock via the information flow to culminate a life cycle. And then we can point to the fundamental conceptual cluster of intelligence, information flow, meaning, knowledge, adaptation understood as fitness or value. And we will argue that the primordial unit of intelligence is the simplest prokaryotic cells. This picture summarizes quite, I mean, we have here in the left the external information flow. This is what I'm going to focus particularly because it is yet not well understood. I mean, the basic component of prokaryotic signaling was rationalized in last, I think it was in 2005, so 15 years ago, and it has not percolated to other branches of science or of thought. We have the famous or infamous energy flow that myriad thermodynamic people have worked on it, and the free energy, the entropy, or the entropy, etc. And we have the inner information flow that people, particularly people working in biosemiotics, has been very keen to focus on it. And they have, well, it is also the fundamental, the central dogma of molecular biology, as Francis Crick put. I mean, information flows from DNA to RNA to proteins. And I'm going to argue that biosemiotics should have focused on the external information flow, because this is really the signaling world that relates the cell to its environment. And we will see that this external information flow governs the transcription of most genes, directly governs the transcription of most prokaryotic genes. Okay, I have summarized here that, well, cellular intelligence, the important novelties. Now the signaling system of the simplest prokaryotic cells, remember, these are very simple cells. I mean, there are some simpler ones, but we don't care. It's archaebacteria. Some of them are also pretty complex. But for instance, E. coli, it has been the model system of molecular biology for many decades. E. coli has 3 kinds of signaling apparatuses. They are called a 1-component system, 2-component system, and 3-component system. It means that there is only one protein in charge that in the 1-component system, 2 different proteins or enzymes in charge, or 3 or more. There are a total of more than 100, in between 100 and 150. Concretely, E. coli has 150. And by large, 1-component systems predominate. These are very fascinating molecules that have 2 phases. In one phase, they recognize a substance, and in the other phase, the other domain, they go to DNA and work as transcription factors. For instance, you will remember the famous lactose operon of Monod and Jacob. This is one case of 1-component system. And they detect around 200 different specific substances. But the fundamental point is that everything from the environment to be introduced, to be processed metabolically, has to pass by one of these component systems, predominantly the 1-component systems. They are, in general, the masters of the energetic state of the cell. And then they guide the cell expression. Here you have the 1-component system, the 2-component system, and the 3-component system. For instance, E. coli has two systems of 3 components, 2. It has 28, I think, of 2-component systems. They are very famous in the literature, the 2-component systems. It was thought that all the sensibility of the prokaryotic cell was related to 2-component systems. No, basically it relates to 1-component systems that are in charge of producing most of the information flow to feed the cell with knowledge, with information about the environment, and to take the gene expression responses. So this you find here approximately more than 1,000 genes are expressed by these apparatuses I mentioned. They are more or less classified here by different categories that we are not going to enter, but it is, some of them are 1 component, other 2 component, or 3. There are also sigma factors. Sigma factors are terribly interesting because they represent the equivalent to emotions in nervous systems. They say the cell, okay, reorient yourself around this, or no, around that. Now, keep growing in good shape. Okay, after expression comes transcription. And this is our basic conceptual world, very simplified, that the cell responds to environmental signals and produces ad hoc meanings via gene expression and other regulatory changes. But the cell continually creates the meaning of the whole signals by protein synthesis, by fabricating in its ribosomes. And then we have now technology to say, okay, if you create this artificial signal, what happens? If you inundate by calcium, or you inundate by phosphate, or whatever, or the detection of the signaling system of the cell, what happens? We can say it. And this happened that there are metabolic changes, and there are some other changes, but above all, there are expression of plenty of genes. And this is the meaning the cell has created. The change it has experiences in its structure is the meaning of the signal we artificially have conveyed. Or in the ecosystem, if it detects viruses, if it detects whatever, other congeners, for instance, for sex relationships between bacteria, they have that. Okay, all substantive changes detected by the signaling system are transformed in general by the meaning, the meaning they obtain these changes is protein synthesis fabricated in ribosomes. And it is the life cycle what determines the extension and depth of these signaling apparatuses and the way they are integrated. And this is the overall scheme of the cell intelligence, that it is enormously based on the external information flow that captures, by this information flow, it captures the energy flow, and then it puts into action the internal information flow. Information flow, as conceptual set, basic conceptual set I was talking a few moments ago, we have the information flow, the intelligence, the meaning, the knowledge, and the value. The value, I mean, it is easy to explain. When you have the trajectory of the life cycle, some things diminish your adaptability, other increase it, and you can advance or go backwards. And this is the value of the meaning you have produced. Well, the prokaryotic cell, the simple cell, is the fundamental unit of natural intelligence. And then we have the whole eukaryotic evolution. We have, I like this cartoon because the prokaryotic cell is represented as a small intelligent being, and the other, the eukaryotic cell, is a very super composite of other intelligent beings inside. And of course, we have a super complex signaling system. Now we have signaling pathways. These are families of signaling pathways. I mean, we made a catalog of around 30 big families of signaling pathways. Some of them can have 20 different forms, other 40, other 100, others. So it is not, we cannot give a figure like 150 I was giving for the prokaryotic cell. And then we have something wonderful, that it is all these signaling clouds are in control of the advancement of the life cycle. Again, it is the life cycle. It is like the super controller, super master, taking the fundamental decision. Stop, go ahead, divide, and also commit apoptosis, stop. You are not interested more for the organism. And then with this wonderful evolutionary capability of eukaryotes, we have fantastic use of electricity. Michael was talking a couple of days ago about how electricity is a capability, not only of the nervous system, but also for many tissues. They are very important for morphogenesis. But the point of the signaling, of the nervous system, it has been evolved. It's a very big complexity to guide the life cycle of multicell organism. So it is a sort of a strange, instantaneous electrical signaling system, always connected with the advancement of a complex life cycle that develops around days, months, years. And it has to follow the environment. Well, a very curious point, not sufficiently emphasized, is that protein synthesis, as you can see here, continues to occur, of course, in all cells. This is the basic engine of life, but continues to occur inside postsynaptic spines. I mean, this is the basic regulatory mechanism of advanced learning. And then we find that if we block proteins, if we block protein synthesis in the cerebellum, we learn nothing. We cannot learn. Any new learning has to pass through dedicated protein synthesis. This is a novelty around 10 years ago, and now it is completely authenticated. Most pyramidal neurons have mechanism of protein synthesis in their postsynaptic sites, and some of them have also protein synthesis in the presynaptic side. Okay, natural intelligence, we recopilate, do you see the whole screen? Let me, okay, fine.
Yes.
Because I see fragmentarily. Meaning I was talking value, and now I want to enter something very curious in mammals particularly, but also in vertebrates, the central nervous system of vertebrates, that there are emotions. So to speak, particularly in mammals and in humans, we have inner drives, we have emotion, we have instincts that adapt the ongoing behavior to the long-term requirements of life cycle. And they somehow grant the triumph of life upon relatively blind brain information processing mechanisms. And this is something we are working. I am working with Jorge Navarro, I think he's around here. And we are trying to develop another alternative approach to emotions so that a variational principle very much related to the variational principle that Michael Levin talked about. And it is based on minimization of brain entropy. But then we go beyond classical taxonomy of the big 6, big 8 emotions, and we see a continuum of particularly social emotions, because we are social creatures, and our intelligence is basically social. And then in this socialization, we have a continuum of reactions, of instinctive reactions that somehow try to convey fitness, adaptation to our social environment. And we find, for instance, acceptation, relation, reward, punishment, joy, sadness, laughter, crying, admiration, envy, and many others. But we think that probably a very simple three-dimensional space containing arousal, containing violence, and containing cognitive appraisal could more or less describe with the variational principle all this continuum of social emotions that adapt us to the environment. And then we have the scheme of natural intelligence that I was very fast describing. And we are then entering into the third part of our talk. We have a very big brain. This brain is basically socially oriented. And according to social brain hypothesis of Robin Dunbar, with his famous Dunbar number, the size of natural groups of humans is very big. I mean, we can interact closely and recognize and have very dedicated memories of around 150 people into a collective. And this is very famous. It's almost a pop item in the media. But it has some, we think, we have in our group with Jorge and others, we have made some studies on what we call sociotype, and we have found figures close to Dunbar number with some interesting differences. But the point is that the engine of our evolution has been the complexification of the human group, and particularly the development of language. And in this context, how do you fit to the group? By means of social emotions. And then social emotions, they fit you in the group, and collectively we achieve in the group some sort of collective intelligence in the group of different layers, different scales. And there is the hypothesis is, or the point of view is that there is a crystallized social intelligence in our societies, in the structure and dynamics of institutions, cultures, associations, with very different degrees, we know. And this social intelligence is always in the making and it is maintained, particularly in a generational basis. And it is a very careful balance to change and to conservation that is difficult to say and very difficult to appreciate too. The problem, big problem we see, we don't have an efficient brain information theory on individual and social behavior, and we don't have a clear understanding, well, a very confusing understanding of social emotions. People in the emotion field are discussing whether it is 6, it is 7, it is universal, it is cultural, it is, I mean, in my view, they are not going to the most productive direction. And it impinges in artificial intelligence because many people in artificial intelligence also are working in emotions related to face recognition, to social control, to image processing, etc. And we think this should be a little bit reoriented. Well, master algorithms, particularly in our time, have entered like elephants in our social structures, disrupting the cultural matrix, disrupting economic structures, and gaining mindless command upon our individual lives. Some part of these new technologies are okay, and they bring, so to speak, more progress, more comfort, but some other parts create really cultural and personal disruption. And they may blindly conduce outside adaptive social paths, leading to an excess of disruption, social polarization, civil unrest, and increase of violence. And so we need new vision, more focus on individual and collective intelligence and the problems of the new social info flows with our emotional basis. And to conclude, the triple convergence of the three realms of intelligence and information, artificial, natural, and social, which is badly needed to improve social governance, not only for scientific reasons, but to improve social governance and for a better use of scientific knowledge. So this is, we, Jorge and me, have tried to represent this. We have put artificial intelligence, social intelligence, natural intelligence, and we have thought on a few fields on how they intersect. This has to be done better. Particularly, I think the number 4. The number 4, I think, is basically, in my opinion, a part of what we have written here is brain information theory, new emotion theory, and also the collective dynamics. And this is some, I think that these ideas are very good for conceptual ordering of artificial intelligence, but we cannot forget natural intelligence and social intelligence, because this is completely interrelated, Well, I have 1 minute. I have prepared something about the sciences, but I'm not going only to show it. This is, for instance, a modern biomaterial research. The problem we have in the sciences to match all the different, all the different individual fields. We have in the order of 6,000 different fields. And years ago, I made in this drawing, I made classification. This was, I think, this was biological science, social science, and this was computer science and physical science. I mean, like a four-leaf plant. But now I think the very center, strategically in our times, should be this conversion of intelligence, or information flow and intelligence are absolutely interrelated. For me, it is almost the same to talk about artificial intelligence or sorry, about natural intelligence or biological information. And then, okay, there are also some comments, but I think we can stop here. Possible making, we need general maps. Information science is very good to make these general views on science, to make the maps, and it should contribute to a new management of science in our global intelligence programs. And then we have to attempt planetary sustainability based on a better use of scientific knowledge. And now that's definitely thanks to all of you.
Thank you very much for your interesting talk. We can accept one quick comment or question. Someone, please proceed.
I would like to ask, but I don't know if I can. Pedro, can you unshare your screen?
Sorry?
Can you unshare your screen?
Yeah. Sorry, wait a minute. I'm not escape. I close this.
Actually, you can.
Actually, close this. Yeah.
Don't close everything because you may go out of this. You can use this share screen and close.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem. I will raise your hand, but maybe someone else. Yes, here you are, Chair. Can I ask the question?
If you have a quick one, please go ahead.
My question is, you were showing these transitions from prokaryotic cell to eukaryotic cell, then to higher level organisms, but this changes in natural intelligence, which means managing this navigation of information flows. Do you think it is like continuous, or does it depend mainly on number, like quantitative change, and it is just changing with number of cells, or there was some kind of point of qualitative change, some kind of revolution that came with some particular event in evolutionary history of life?
Well, I think that life has followed many paths. Some of them have kept simplicity. Others have grown quantitatively, as you say, but also with revolutionary changes from time to time. And these revolutionary changes, for instance, the origins of nervous system, the massive use of electricity for many. I think I was going to discuss with Michael Levin, because I think the nervous system appear for osmotic purposes. And then these osmotic purposes then are continued in neurosecretion. And then this osmotic and neurosecretion, osmotic means electricity, basically. This osmotic and neurosecretion are very good for controlling morphogenesis. And then we have what he was talking about. But there is both quantitative growth, and there is also from time to time big revolutionary qualitative improvements that you say, okay, this is a new way to handle the information flow. You can now capture far faster, or you can capture new varieties of signals. You make fascinating processing, new processing, etc.
Thank you very much.